Welcome back to the Coming Out Happy podcast. We are your hosts, Dani and Keely, and we are so glad that you're here. Welcome back to the show. Coming Out Happy podcast is all about being LGBTQ+, dating struggles, and so much more.
If you like what you hear, make sure you leave us a 5-star review and rating. We can't wait to hear from you. And as always, welcome back to the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. We're so glad that you're here. I know I say that every week, but we really are. If you're tuning in from your car, on your way to work, if you're tuning in from your bed, if you're tuning in from your nightly walk, whatever that may be, I just want you to know that we appreciate you so much and are just super excited to get into today's topic. So, Dani, what are we going to be talking about today?
Love that, Keely. Thank you so much for that nice little intro. Today we're going to be talking about denial when it comes to the coming out process. Keely, have you experienced something like that?
Well, to answer your question in short, yes and no. And I know that sounds really complicated, but I never denied myself to my actual self. Like, I always knew that I liked women, and I always knew that I was gay, and I never denied that part of myself, but externally, I denied it, if that makes sense. I hid my sexuality for a very long time because I was so afraid that people would reject me, and I was afraid to lose out on opportunities and, so many different things. And so, yes, I denied myself to the world, but I never denied myself to myself, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Kind of complicated.
Kind of. I understand what you're saying, and I think, like, why were you denying yourself from other people? Like, when other people were asking you if you were who you were, or when did you deny yourself to other people?
Yeah, like, I actually remember being asked if I was gay, and I was like, no. I would get really defensive, and I would never answer yes because I was so afraid to be me. But when it came down to actually sitting with myself and asking myself if I was gay, I knew that I was, and I never denied that. I never tried to convince myself otherwise. But I know you had a little bit different of a journey, and you tried to convince yourself that it was wrong.
Yeah, for years. I really tried very hard to, I guess, act like this, like the feelings weren't real, like it wasn't happening. And it got down to a point where I gave up on making myself happy. And I really started to believe that maybe there was something wrong with me, and maybe I need to keep trying to be someone else. I experienced a really long time of having boyfriends, and that was something that I did because I thought, all right, well, I'm never going to act upon anything else. This is the only option I have, right? I'm not gay, so let me just date boys, and that'll be the rest of my life, even if I wasn't happy.
Yeah, and that's true for so many people. Maybe you're listening right now and resonating with Dani's story, or maybe you're resonating with mine, and each and every one of us have our own, journey of how maybe we denied ourselves to the external world, or how we denied ourselves internally. And that's something that can be really difficult, because how do you snap out of that? What was that moment for you, Dani, where you were like, I'm not denying myself anymore. This is who I am.
I think it really comes down to a point where you can't hold it in anymore. Like, it feels so extremely painful. Like, I was a senior in high school, and I really that was a point where I couldn't hide it from myself anymore. Like, obviously the outside world was a completely different journey of coming out that way, which I did later on. But I think it came down to, there was something in my face. There was a girl that I was like talking to that I just couldn't run away from it anymore. Like, I really tried to run away from it and not be surrounded by other queer people, and not put myself in situations that would make me visibly uncomfortable because of internalized homophobia. Like, that's really what it all came down to, is what I was experiencing. I was convinced that it was wrong. I was convinced that it was weird. And I was like, I don't want to be a part of that. So I was like, screw that. And then subconscious was like, that's not you, boo. You got it. And then, it just turned into a straight girl that didn't end up well, and I was really sad because I never connected with anyone that I was with. It was very obvious that wasn't my thing. And I could only run away from it for so long before it caught up to me, and the universe placed this situation in front of me, because it was like, you can't run away from this anymore, regardless of how hard you try. This is who you are, and it's okay. Figure it out along the way, and you got this. But I think the most important thing to know, if you're in this situation, where you're not exactly sure what's going on. Maybe you're starting to feel something and you're not sure, let alone act on it. I'm just talking about, learning how to accept yourself is a really long journey. But just with being LGBT, something I just want to make very clear is that you don't need to put any pressure on being someone. And I think just knowing that, and knowing that regardless of who you date or who you are, you can be whoever you want. And I feel like a lot of the times we're just expected to become a person that really doesn't fit into who we eventually want to be. So I think remembering that regardless of who you are, you deserve to be happy. And you will figure it out along the way, I promise you. The universe will throw things at you to make you understand more of who you are. And I actually mentioned this on a story, on an Instagram story that we had. I said that Keely and I aren't experts in labels, and I never want to convince or make anyone believe that Keely and I know every single thing about every single label and the whole community, like the ins and outs of that. What we're here to show everyone is to show them that they deserve to be who they are regardless of how they identify. Because Keely and I really don't believe in putting people into a box. That's exactly what I try to run away from. Because I don't think anyone deserves to be put into a box, regardless of who you are, who you love, anything like that. We're all our own unique people, and we can love and be who we are at the end of the day without needing to fit into any mold. So if you're stuck on, labels, if you're stuck on who should I be with, just know that it'll come and it's okay, regardless of the outcome of all of it.
Wow, that was so beautifully said. Seriously, Dani, that was really beautiful. It's so true. You just laid it all out there, and this was a conversation about denial, and I think why we deny ourselves is because we put so much pressure on who we're supposed to be, who the world wants us to be, right? And it goes so deep that we begin to deny ourselves. The person that you spend the most time with, the person that you always have your back. And we begin to deny ourselves, and that's heartbreaking because you should be your own best friend. And I know it takes some time to get there, but that is the most beautiful relationship you can ever have, is truly with yourself. When you have your own back, you trust yourself, you're confident in who you are. You can walk into a room and you're like, this is me, this is who I am. And it's an incredible journey, and we're super excited to be here all along that journey with you. But like you were saying, a little bit earlier, Dani, I think it just comes in your own time. If you're denying yourself now and you're feeling bad about it, don't feel bad about it. Take time to experiment what you want to see, what you want to experiment with, who you like, who you are, whatever that may be for you, just, learning and practicing.
Yeah, and I also just want to say it's okay to feel sometimes lost in this journey of self-discovery. There's nothing wrong with being maybe just in an in-between phase of I'm not exactly sure how I'm feeling, but I want to explore it. We've all been there. I've definitely been there where I've questioned, who I was attracted to and what the type of person that I wanted to be. In my own identity. And I think it just all takes a lot of time, but you've got this, and we're always here for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you, Dani, a question maybe more specific to your journey. When you first, had that moment, you said it was kind of the universe threw it into your life, that moment where you were like, I can't deny this anymore. Was that because you acted on it? Was that the difference you felt from maybe, acting on romantic things with a woman versus a man?
I never acted on it with that girl.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. It wasn't that. She was placed in my class, and we just started talking, and I realized from being around the only openly, gay person in my school at the time, I just knew it was a sign, and I was attracted to that. I may not have been attracted to her, but I just wanted to get to understand. I'll never forget, I actually asked her, I was like, what is that like? What is it like to be in a relationship with a girl? And obviously from those questions I was asking, regardless of how I wanted to identify, there was something that was interesting to me, and there was something that was pulling me to her, and I needed to figure out why. And eventually I figured out it was because I was gay, and that was it. You know, I think there's so many different questions about figuring out yourself, but it'll come again with time. That's it. So I tried really hard to understand why I was thinking about her and why I was trying to text her and why I was asking her these in detail questions about like the life that she was living, because I wanted that too. And I didn't really want to see it inside myself, but eventually I was like, the voice in my head is just getting too loud to ignore anymore. Let me understand who I am. And then I let myself be free for the first time in my life.
That's really cool. I love that. And just with that girl, did it ever, I mean, you were just ended up being friends with her then?
Yeah, it actually ended up really, really badly. She got into a relationship with her best friend after we were talking.
Oh, gosh. Here's the tea.
Yes, the real tea. I never talk about
Maybe
this.
she's listening.
Maybe.
I know, I kind of wanted to ask that question because we never really talk about it, but it's a really big part of
So I've never done anything with her, but she got into a relationship, and then, you know, being a stupid kid, she texted me like a few months later after like we weren't friends anymore, and she told me to like meet her somewhere. And I met her.
You drove?
I drove and I met her because I think yeah. And she told me that she wanted to talk. And then all of a sudden her girlfriend popped out of the car. And then I literally ran away. And I because I was also not out and I was living in my parents' house, that was the most anxiety-ridden moment I've ever felt in my entire life.
Wow.
I ran away and I was like, oh my God, I can't even tell my parents.
So how did it not like steer you away? Were you like thinking that was a sign that maybe it could have been wrong?
No, because I still obviously very much wanted
a girl.
Yeah, and it may not have been her, but I was very clearly invested in something, and it drew me to her. And that was a very scary moment, and I'm glad that I got out of that.
So then when you finally were with a girl for the first time, what was that like? Was that like the defining moment of like, wow, this feels really different and right?
Yeah, I think let's save that first for a different time. But yeah, it definitely felt like it made more sense than anything.
Topic?
Yeah, new podcast. We can do that next week.
All right, stay tuned for next week. We're going into all the juicy details.
All of our first kisses and first things. But yeah, I think
first kisses.
You're
so
is that not what you're talking about? Just
kidding.
Kidding.
And by the way, Dani and I are dating. If you didn't know that.
But yeah, it just everything started to feel right, and that's when it started to make sense. Like a lot of people discover themselves now on TikTok, which is beautiful because you guys have an outlet for figuring out more of the community and more of who you are. Like I needed to see more people out there like me. So that's also like why Keely and I do what we do, is to give visibility to people, regardless of us being just another, random two people. But I want to be helping anyone who may feel lost. And that's the whole point of us speaking out as much as we can to help someone who's maybe, like, regardless of where you are in your journey, to understand that you're not alone and that it's okay to be where you are.
Yeah, and totally. And I wanted to bring up something really quickly, and I don't know if you wanted to dive into this, but I've been seeing, you mentioned on TikTok, you can go and like learn more about your identity. But something I've been seeing is for people that are coming out later in life, they're feeling kind of like there's a little bit of gatekeeping going on in the TikTok community where you're not really expressing your, or you're not able to just be who you are. There's all these different boxes. And that's exactly what we're talking against, is that it doesn't matter. You don't need a box. You don't need to fit a label. None of that. And if you're just experimenting, or you've been married before to a man and now you're figuring out that you're gay, and it doesn't mean anything. It just means that you're gay. Yeah. It doesn't mean anything at all. There's no gatekeeping. And I know.
Well, no, people do experience that. It's definitely real.
But there shouldn't be, is what I meant.
There is none. But it definitely is like that. And I definitely want to save that for another topic, because the reality is even the LGBTQ plus community has its own boxes. There's so many people who hate on each other for no reason, and we're in the same family, the same community. Like, we shouldn't be doing this, but that's like that is how it is. So I definitely want to dive way deeper into that. But
yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know you're talking a little bit about people going on TikTok to explore more. It can be a good thing, but also it can make people
it can
feel
be harmful, just
trapped.
for that. But I just don't want anyone thinking that, that's not what we talk about. We are here for the expression of who you are for whatever that may be. Regardless of how you identify, your expression of who you are, like, we love you for you, and we want to create that for you, with you, and all together at the same time. So definitely want to be diving into that in a different podcast episode.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've loved this conversation. You have done an amazing job, Dani. You took it away this time, really, with your stories, your details. I felt like I was there with her when the girl was about to punch her in the face.
That was terrifying.
Yeah, but I really just am thankful that we have this space to share. And if you ever have any questions, head on over to our Instagram and send us a message at Coming Out Happy. And as always, if you liked this podcast, make sure you leave us a 5-star review if you liked it on Apple Podcasts, and we'd love to hear from you. So rate it 5 stars, and we'll see you all on the next podcast. Stay tuned for some juicy details. Bye, everyone.